And everyone, I'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mr. Kale?
Here.
Mr. Tarley?
Here.
Mr. Boswell?
Here.
Mr. Granger?
Here.
Mr. Phillips? Here. Ms. Liebel?
Ms. Liebel, are you on the phone? Oh, that's right, that's right.
All right, Madam Clerk, we have a quorum. And if we have a preliminary request for remote participation from Ms. Liebel, if I could please get a motion to approve that request.
So moved.
Second?
All right.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Kale?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Here.
That's
Mr.
two of us.
Boswell?
That's two of us now.
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
All right, and Ms. Liebel, are you able to hear us at this point? It's like somebody's talking, but I can't hear anything.
Is she on mute?
She might be on mute.
Ms. Liebel, are you on mute? It's coming up as talking on the screen, but there's no sound coming through.
Maybe we can have our IT department look into why we can't hear Ms. Liebel.
I'm gone off my headset. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Ms. Liebel, thank you. We can hear you.
Okay.
All right, moving on to matters of special privilege. We have this afternoon election of officers. We are going to start with the board chair. I'm going to at this time ask if any members have any nominations for board chair.
I nominate Mr. Boswell for board chair, commission chair.
I'll second that.
All right. Any other nominations? All right, we'll go ahead and close nominations for board chair. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Kale?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
All right, congratulations, Chair Boswell. I'll hand the meeting over to you.
Okay, thank you. We also need to elect first vice chair, second vice chair, and our secretary. Are there nominations?
Yes, I nominate John Tarley for first vice chair, Greg Granger for second vice chair, and Heather Moore for secretary.
Second.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Kale?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item is the approval of minutes from our regular meeting December 20 and our CIP work session of January 24 of this year. There have been a few changes since they were originally posted, I think on Friday, just some edits. Are there any other edits to be made? Okay, is there a motion then to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 20 of 23 and the CIP work session of January 24 of 24?
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Kale?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I've been advised by Ms. Griffin that we are going to be tabling the agenda items marked E, F, and G, which is the sports complex. Those are going to be tabled, and we'll not be hearing those today. Is that correct, Ms. Griffin?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so that's a staff decision there, so we will not be doing that, and I have one speaker card. Mr. Hudgens, I believe you wanted to talk about that, so we'll hear from you. I'm sure that'll be back, as you imagine, right? So we'll hear from you later on that when it's rescheduled. All right, thank you. And you're welcome to stay and listen to everything else. Okay, thank you. So that takes care of that. That brings us to an open forum, which is an opportunity for anyone to speak to us about matters that are not on the agenda today. I'm going to open that open forum and give everyone the opportunity. Dr. Cranbuell, I see you heading down.
I just have some suggestions, and I leave it to you as to how you feel about them. I'm very concerned about information getting to people. And I feel like I had meetings with 2 city council members and a phone conversation, my group with a third, and it was agreed by those council members that there is a significant breakdown, and I believe at a work session, you brought that up yourself. And then there's this role of participation, because it's impossible to participate if you don't have information, but then there still is a question of participation. So it seems to me that we would not be erring by publicizing the agenda for this group's meetings regardless, just publicizing it, and as opposed to whether it might have things that somebody senses would be of interest to the public. So I just think having the Architectural Review Committee and this committee post the agenda before the meeting a week before is just a good idea to get people's attention and thinking, because that's our goal, really, to get more participation. And then the second thing is, the CIP is quite important, and it's particularly important in this particular period, because if I talk to my neighbors who I learn from, that, because none of us probably, or only a few of us, let's put it that way, we have about $34 million in debt right now, and we're about, in the next 2 or 3 years, to take on, as I understand it, approximately $26 million, taking us to $60 million, meaning in a very short time, we're going to almost double our debt. And of course, with the sports complex, it also brings up the same question. People are concerned, a lot of people. I mean, and we see it in the paper, particularly in both counties. So it seems to me a couple of things would be helpful. First of all, what are we doing? And so we have the CIP, and of course, a lot of people didn't even know you were having the workshop because it wasn't in the newspaper. So that's why it should be advertised. But I think once you get into the CIP, which I went through at least once, maybe twice, it's 108 pages, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I'm at the university, so we kind of do this by definition when we create a publication, but there ought to be an index, don't you think? I mean, I go through and I can't digest the order of all of these things, and then I have to take notes, and I mean, it just ought to be a much tighter, more readable document. And so in the beginning, you have the budget items in the different years, and I guess there's a page for every one of those items. So it would be pretty, I would assume, logical, if they're correlated, to just have next to each of the items in the budget for what years, to have the page of where they are going down. Now, maybe it's chronological. I didn't check that out. But even if it is, it just would be easy to just have the page number, so the whole thing's more readable. And then, I don't know, but I went back out of encouragement from Tevye and whatever to go back and look at our plan, and which was in 2021, I guess, and our goals. And for me, each has his own feelings, but the most important thing in this city, for me, is preservation of the quality of life we have here. And to me, the two factors that affect the quality of life here are our neighborhoods and our green space, and that those two issues, and then there's always the issue of traffic, but those issues came out in the discussion of the spot splitter, i.e. that never came up because of the strong feelings of the people and other factors, and with the company and death and everything. But what I'm trying to say is, when I look at this CIP, I don't know, it just seems to me to be in another world from neighborhoods and preservation of green space. I don't see a budget for green space, flowers, I mean, just kind of things. And I don't see anything, and I'm not sure where it would be for neighborhoods, but it just makes me a little uncomfortable. And that comes back to money. And so going back to the amount we're going to spend on this, and I guess we'll just assume that we're going to be worried about neighborhoods and green space and traffic. But I also think it would be particularly helpful now if we had a section in the CIP which dealt with how we're going to fund this. So I would kind of like to see the projection. I'm sure it exists, but how far should you have to dig to see the projection of the revenues and the projection of the expenses and the projection of the principal payments and the projections of the interest payments? And then there's a huge question of if we double the amount we're borrowing, then what does it mean in terms of when something important comes up where we need to spend 20, 30 million of borrowing more money? And then how does that, of course, in the end, I'm not worried about it because I feel like taxes, it's too good a deal here. But the point is, we should have a plan for the options. And so we just feel comfortable, or more comfortable, I guess is the point, with what we're doing. And by and large, I am a little uncomfortable because we seem to be going awfully fast. It's almost as if you can't get this done in 4 months. I mean, that's not good. I mean, I think going a little bit more slowly and knowing and feeling comfortable of what we're doing for the future. I mean, a lot of us won't even be here, for after 10, 15, 20 years. So at any rate, I would like to see in the CIP a section that really deals with these issues of how much money we're borrowing and so forth. And then the whole thing would be a really solid document that would answer a lot of questions instead of putting things in the last word. So, okay, there's just some thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Cranbill. Always appreciate your input. I know staff was taking notes. Most of what you referenced are things that staff can certainly address, even if Planning Commission can't. Anyone else like to come and speak during the open forum about anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing no stampede to the microphone, I will close the open forum. We have no consent agenda items today. That gets us to our public hearings. The first is an opportunity for folks to give input on the CIP, which Dr. Cranbill was just talking about. Ms. Griffin, I think we're not going to have you're not going to give a presentation on this, right? We had a very extensive document that was attached that.
Yes, so you had a document that was attached, and then in January, you had a work session with the city manager. So this is just for you to receive public input.
So anybody who would like to address the commission about the CIP and specifically items that you'd like to include on the CIP, now would be the time. I don't see anyone coming forward for that, so I'll close that public hearing, the forum, and point out that there were a couple of issues with the draft of the CIP letter to the city manager. Mr. Tarley, I believe you had a comment.
The edits I made, if you look on the second page, that bullet point should be deleted. I had moved that up into the safety, the improving safety for pedestrians, so that bullet point can be deleted.
We got those comments, and Heather's.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, were there other changes, other comments about the CIP letter? Okay, I don't think we usually do a motion for that, do we? We don't do. We'll get that final version and we'll send it off to the city manager. Okay, that gets us to PCR 24-001 and I believe 002. Are you going to, Ms. Griffin, are you going to present on both of those together?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, I'm going to recuse myself from the conversation as I have an ownership interest in the property and a landlord-tenant relationship with the applicant.
All right, thank you, Mr. Granger.
Thank you.
Ms. Griffin, it's all yours.
Yes. The city has received a request from Jonathan S. Bender for a text amendment to add a private educational facility with a special use permit in the downtown business district. This district is also known as our B1 district. It is in section 21-294 of our zoning ordinance. A private educational facility is not currently allowed in the B1 district. The B1 district does allow several different educational facilities, such as a college, private and public elementary, middle, and high schools, but not a private educational facility. This facility is defined as a for-profit or not-for-profit business, the purpose of which is to teach a group of students drawn from the public information skills, trades at a fee. Because this particular use is not allowed in the B1 district, the applicant is requesting that a text amendment be made to the B1 district to allow private educational facilities. Anytime we're looking at a text amendment, we want to look at exactly what the district allows at the time and if the use would be compatible. Like I said, there are already educational facilities in the B1, and so staff feels that adding the educational facility, private educational facility with a special use permit is in keeping with the character of the B1 district. We also feel that this would liven up and bring some vibrancy, more vibrancy downtown. We know that from the pictures that you've seen of what happens at this particular educational facility, there are a lot of students that are there, young students, and we believe that the B1 district is favorable for the adding of this particular use. We do think it should be a special use permit, and the reason for that is we don't know what type of private educational facility, and we believe it's important for the residents, for neighbors, and for the Planning Commission and City Council to be able to regulate uses such as educational facilities, just to ensure that it is compatible with the B1 zoning district. So because of that, we are recommending approval of a private educational facility, but with a special use permit in the B1 district. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and by that time, we'll figure out why my PowerPoint isn't working.
Yeah, questions for Ms. Griffin, Mr. Tarley?
The term private educational facility isn't
Yes.
defined.
Well, our city attorney has defined it as a for-profit or not-for-profit business, the purpose of which is to teach a group of students drawn from the public information, skills, trades for a fee. So that would be the definition.
Is it in our pack? Was that in our pack?
Yes, it is.
That was it.
Okay.
Realize that there is going to be review as a special use permit, but there should be some sort of criteria. So you answered my question. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Ms. Griffin? Okay, we'll open the public forum on this. Is the applicant here? I don't know if the applicant.
Yes, the applicant is here, Mr. Bender.
Okay, Mr. Bender, if you'd like to address the commission, now's your time. If not, we'll just ask for other, certainly not required, not a issue if you don't care to. Anyone else care to address the commission? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public forum and ask, I'm planning on just doing these both together. Is there a motion to recommend approval of PCR 24-001 and approval of PCR 24-002?
So moved.
Second.
I second.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Kale?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Mr. Granger? Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That gets us to PCR 24-003.
Yes. So this is a request. Let me go through the presentation from
I'm
002.
sorry you didn't get to
I
do your whole
know, it was so
presentation. I
pretty.
know
I put so much
you've got
time
you've
into
got
it.
You've got new graphics.
Well,
Just, go,
may I make a comment?
please.
Yes.
I was absolutely and positively delighted to read the application for the Music Conservatory, so thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you. So yes, so now we have PCR 24003. This is a special use permit submitted by North River Properties LLC for an amendment to a previously approved special use permit to add a retail establishment on the first floor of the Almerstead House Inn, located at 320 North Henry Street. It's also identified as tax map number 465-1300-095. The current special use permit was approved in May of 2007 with the following conditions. The applicant can have a maximum of 6 bedrooms. A minor site plan submission was required to include ADA access and parking spaces in the back. A landscape plan with specific number of trees and plantings was required, as well as each room or suite had to have a private bathroom. The inn is in compliance with their special use permit. They are requesting an amendment to their special use permit, and Section 2147 of the zoning ordinance is very clear about what has to happen when looking at special use permit amendments. Minor changes have to be reviewed through these 6 criteria. The first is, does the use change the general character of the approved special use permit? Does it adversely affect the development or use of adjacent properties and surrounding neighborhoods? Will it result in any substantial change to major external access points? Does it increase the approved number of dwelling units and/or the approved amount of non-residential floor area? Does it add buildings not shown on the approved development plan? And does it violate any specific conditions that were made as a part of the original special use permit approval? Staff believe that this request was in keeping with items 2 through 6. However, the addition of retail space in the House Inn, we believe, was a change to the general character of the approved special use permit. And therefore, the ordinance requires it to go through this process before the Planning Commission and before the City Council. This is a existing floor plan and then a proposed floor plan. The special use permit would only add retail space to the first floor. And here you can see the calculation and you can see what is being changed. Pretty much there is a suite with 2 bedrooms. They would just remove one of the bedrooms from the residential calculation or the suite calculation. And in total, there's approximately 1,300 square feet at the first floor that would be used for retail space. This retail space would be a small gift shop that would include Victorian antiques as a nod to the Victorian architecture of the home. When reviewing special use permits, there are 6 criteria that the staff has to review. The first is it compatible with the comprehensive plan? The second, is it compatible with the zoning district, the character of adjacent properties in the neighborhood, and then does it have adequate public services? The comprehensive plan designation does call for this area to be mixed use. This is in keeping with what the applicant wants to do. It also talks about the adaptive reuse of property, which is also exactly what they're doing. The zoning district, LB1, is also a mixed use district. It's adjacent to the downtown. It will not change the character of adjacent properties in the neighborhood. It actually won't change anything about the exterior of the inn. And of course, it's already adequately serviced by water, sewer, police, and fire. And the last 2 criteria that we have to look at is the loss of features. Is it going to result in the destruction or loss or damage of any ecological, scenic, or historic importance? Staff does not feel that it will. There's not any changes going to be made to the outside of the home. All changes will be interior. It is in the AP1 district, so any exterior changes, if they were requesting any, would have to go before the Architectural Review Board. The zoning district, will the use be designed, sited, and landscaped? There will not be any changes to the exterior of the building again. So because of this, staff recommends approval of PCR 24003. We feel that it is compatible with all 6 criteria required in the zoning ordinance. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I have not met the applicant in person, but I believe they are here, so if you have any questions of the applicant, I'm sure they're happy to answer them.
Okay, questions for Ms. Griffin first? Oh, thank you for that presentation. Would the applicant like to address the commission, or just, does anyone have questions? Okay, anyone else have comments about this application? If not, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Discussion? Is there a motion? Ms. Liebel, any discussion? I keep forgetting you're there, I'm sorry.
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to recommend approval of PCR 24-003 with staff recommendations?
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Kale,
Aye.
Mr. Tarley,
Aye.
Mr. Boswell,
Aye.
Mr. Granger,
Aye.
Ms. Liebel,
Aye.
Mr. Phillips.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned at the beginning of our meeting today, the agenda items E, F, and G have been tabled by staff, and I'm sure they will be coming back. Anika, that was going to be the fun part of it, so you'll have to come back when we reschedule that. We don't have site plans today or unfinished business. I'm going to defer the commissioner reports. We have one item that is scheduled for public hearing March 20. We've heard this one before, but the plan has been reconfigured substantially, so it needs to come back to us per the city attorney's office. Anything else that we need to accomplish today? Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.